Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to The Right Mindset. Today, we are going to go over empowering characters, harnessing the power of character agency. That's right. So, if you don't know what character agency is, just know that it's the life force that empowers your characters, basically transforming them from mere words on a page into living, breathing entities. So we're going to really explore that because it's about giving your characters the autonomy to make choices, take action, and drive the plot forward. That's not to say that a passive character can't also have agency. I'll try to fit that in. So in this lesson, we'll explore why character agency is not just important, but absolutely vital to your storytelling. Now, it's not just about the characters, it's about your narrative as a whole, because character agency is the magic ingredient that keeps your readers engaged, invested, and turning those pages. So, what should this lesson do for your narrative? Well, it should infuse it with depth, dynamicism, dynamic elements, and a sense of authenticity. All right. So let's do it. Let's hit that intro because, I got to get my sip of drinking before we get started because I'm always parched. Let's just go right into the, if you haven't already, but you really want to, and you like what you hear on this channel, please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss out. If you're new here, we go over lessons on the craft of writing. We analyze and review storytelling, and also we have interviews with fellow writers on the podcast. Let's just jump into it because that's what we're here for, is to learn about the essence of character agency. I don't know. Character agency, my fellow storytellers, is the driving force behind compelling narratives. It's about giving your characters the power to shape the world around them, to make choices, and to actively engage with the story's events. So, what is it though? And why is it so crucial? And it is character agency. Well, at its core, character agency represents a character's ability to influence the plot, make decisions, and take actions that drive the story forward. Now, keep in mind, it's not about characters being passive observers or reacting to circumstances. Instead, it's about them being proactive, shaping their destinies, and making choices that matter. Before I move any further, you can still be a passive character per se and still have agency. Meaning, if you choose not to do something, that is a choice. So if a character is choosing always to just kind of not take chances, if they're not being agreeable, these are stances that they wholeheartedly believe. Their position is unwavering, and therefore that becomes agency for them. They are choosing not to change their position. They are choosing not to do anything extreme or outright. However, when it comes to understanding and recognizing agency on the page, that might not be dynamic. If a character is always saying no or being, basically drawing or slowing down the story, but it's okay to be passive sometimes. It's okay to have a character to be the one that sits back and listens. It's okay to have those moments. You have to bring some variety to it. But the importance of understanding character agency cannot be overstated, because without agency, characters risk becoming one-dimensional, mere pawns in your storytelling chessboard, When characters lack agency, readers may struggle to connect with them or even become invested in their story. That's why I'm saying sometimes, even if they're making the choice not to have an opinion or making the choice not to take action, that is technically agency, but they are being passive. And it's okay to be passive sometimes, but they still have to show a proactive agency to, especially to be the driving force in your story. So, what's the goal here with agency? Well, honestly, it's about breathing life into your characters. It's about making them relatable, and it's about allowing readers to root for their success or agonize over their failures. Now, character agency makes your characters feel real, and when readers can empathize with them, your story gains emotional depth and resonance. But, Thomas, how does character agency make them feel real? We as people can be passive or active, but we always have a stance. We always have a choice within us. Either that choice is to go along with the flow or it's to fight against that flow. That choice is to do what we love or not do what we love. The point is, humans have choice, right? And in a story, if you take away choice to do or not do, say or not say, you're taking away that character's life because they have no choices, they have no character. If they have no character, they're just a piece. So if it's a character that steps in and says, "Yes, I don't know, would you like some items to buy on your would you All right, here's a good example. If a character comes into an apothecary, can you please sell me your strongest potion? You cannot handle my potions. They are my strongest potions. In those situations, there's still agency because the apothecary is saying, "You can't handle my potions; they're too strong." I'm not doing that verbatim, but there's a really funny video where the guy's like, "Will you take my potions?" Anyway, um, the first character has agency because they're taking action to go in and get a potion. The second person character has agency because they're saying, "No, you can't. I'm not giving it to you because you can't handle it." So here's an example of no agency for the second character. The first character still has the agency with them going in. Hey, I need your strongest potion because ultimately, it's going to help me get through this thing. And then the shop owner goes, "Here is the strongest potion. That's $15." Okay, they're not being passive because they're not going against the grain. And they are just accepting their role. So that character choice has no agency. Now you might be saying, "But Thomas, it's a nobody character. It's an NPC. Ultimately, it's not doing anything. Their job is to give the potion." But dynamically speaking, how interesting would your story be if that shopkeeper did express the risk of taking that potion? They're not necessarily denying them the potion. They're presenting a hesitant thought, meaning like that potion is too powerful for someone of your size. You're what, 5'9" and 150 pounds soaking wet? This potion, you can't even take a nibble of it without it. This is for a larger species, more like maybe an orc or a gnoll or a giant or whatever, right? If you're doing fantasy, I'm just using it as an example. And the character now can also have agency, the protagonist, because they'll be like, they might think for a second, they'll be like, "Oh, let me I'm weighing it out. I'm weighing it out. This is agency right here. I'm weighing it out." And then like, "No, I have to take it. I need to risk my life to make sure I can overcome this thing." And then the shopkeeper might just be like, "All right, but I'm not responsible for the outcome." That shop agent still has agency because they're like, "I don't want to be responsible for this." They have a position, and that position is being challenged, blah, 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 right? So that becomes a little bit more interesting, even for a nobody character. Agency makes every moment feel interesting and real because there are choices involved. There are thoughts involved. There are stances and positions. And that's ultimately what agency is somebody making a choice on something, taking action, either to present my hesitations. I don't think you should be taking this. It's not good. And I have to take it. Okay. So that's why character agency really helps make characters feel real. And that's why readers can empathize with it, because you can empathize with risking your life. You could empathize with not wanting to be responsible for something. So that is an example. And that's why there's emotional depth and resonance, because you're weighing out the values of it. But if it's just like, yes, here's the potion, $15, like, it's not exciting. So, but the reality, this is the exciting part of it all. When it comes to writing, I say it all the time. I'm very, very comfortable believing in this position that there is no one size fits all formula for character agency, what you want to do with your characters, what you want to do with your story. It's a learning experience. You might be doing what's right for your narrative, but not necessarily using the tools correctly. And that's okay, because it's what you know, and that's fine. But the whole purpose of trying things, and honestly, even if there are rules, you should try to break them, because that's how writing evolves. So if someone's like, you're not doing the rule properly, it's like, yeah, well, I don't understand the rule, or I understand the rule and I don't agree with it, or you're trying something new, because that's how writing evolves. We have to break the rules sometimes. So I believe there is no one size fits all. This is just me telling you what I know of writing and what I've learned over the years. And through my research, through because I'm a developmental editor, etc. um but what I'm saying, I'm not telling you this is the only way. I'm just giving you options. I'm showing you the toolbox. I'm adding reds and blues and greens to your palette, right? So, but remember, whether your characters are bold decision makers or reluctant heroes, or anything in between, the key is to ensure that their actions align with their motivations, personalities, their positions, and the creative essence of your story. Because it's at the end of the day, it's all about serving your creative vision. So there's really no wrong answer. It's art. However, the cleanliness of it, like, well, I'll give you a quick example before I go any further. Um, we have writers, we have a voice to our writing style. That's your author's voice. It's the words you use, how you use your chapters, the themes you talk about. This all has to do with your writer's voice, your passage length, etc. I write very lyrically and poetically. Oh, God, I can't speak today. And the reason is because uh, I'm a musician. I started with lyrics. I started with poetry. Um, I mean, creatively, I started as an illustrator. I was an artist and I drew. But I moved into the more artistic use of words, because I was always scared that I couldn't write, right? Because I didn't have a lot of supporting teachers growing up. Um, I had to find my confidence in other people. I built my community, and the best community you could be around are the people that tell you it's not working. But they don't necessarily tell you, A, that you should be doing what they're doing, but they also don't tell you, B, that what you're doing is crap. But what they do is they'll say, this is not working. This is why it doesn't work. Here's some options or optional rules. And now you're in the right community, I feel. But with that said, I really like what I'm getting at is I like writing with a poetic feel. I'm not very purpley per se, but like, for example, instead of saying they took a few steps, I go, they took, they moved down the path a few breaths before reaching the entrance. It's playful. There's movement to it in my mind, Um, but I've had editors go, you shouldn't use breath. You should they moved a few steps towards the path before the entrance. So again, the rules exist. They're not wrong, but I have a writer's voice. As long as it makes sense visually, logically, it doesn't have to be proper grammar in that sense. You can play with words. You can be artistic with it. So that's the same thing with agency or any other tool, especially any tool that I'm showing you. Find what works for you within the tool, mold the tool, use the tool that works for you best. However, be aware that, sometimes trying things or breaking the rules, you might find that things aren't working. Okay? That doesn't mean you're a bad writer. That doesn't mean what you were writing is bad. It just means it isn't working. So maybe you got to come back up and try different things, right? But anyway, all right, let's keep going. The impact of character agency. Now that we've delved into what character agency is and why it's vital, let's explore the incredible impact it has on your characters and the overall story. Depth and dimension, because, by the way, character agency will add layers to your characters. It showcases their strengths, weaknesses, desires, fears, and the such, etc., through their choices and actions. These choices should resonate with the character's personality, past experiences, and other elements like their position to create a sense of authenticity. Now, keep in mind, agency is a magnet for reader engagement. When readers witness characters actively making choices, they become emotionally invested in the outcome because they are moving through the character's experience and their story. They are ultimately being pulled through their agency, their choices, and they're holding tension or suspense or joy or fear or sadness because their choices, their agency leads to things, right? What is happening is that they are basically cheering for your favorite sports team. You're not just watching, you're part of the game. When you see teams taking choice, or maybe we're not sports fans here, but you see somebody going in, you go, oh, they're going for the shotgun, or they're still running it. Oh, they're going for the field goal. And if I'm going to use another analogy, maybe it's ultimately like, maybe you have a favorite writer, and you're cheering them on. Forget the story. You're cheering them on to get their book done. And they're making active choices to get their book done. They're working on the outline, or they're pantsing, and they're doing their zero draft through the pantsing to discover where the story goes. And they finish a chapter and another chapter, and you're rooting them on. That's the same thing for your characters. You want to root them on, even when they take a moment to be passive. All right? But don't be too passive. But it's okay to also be active, but don't be too active. Humans vary. And what's important about the agency is that it fuels conflicts and tensions, as I was saying in your story, when characters have opposing goals and desires or positions, and their agencies clash, creating compelling conflicts that drive the plot forward. Now, these clashes generate excitement and keep readers hooked. Character agency is the vehicle for character growth as characters face challenges and make decisions. They evolve, learn, and transform through their choices. And it is through these experiences that characters become dynamic and relatable. Because what does agency do? If agency is choice and a character making a choice, either to or not to do something, say or not to say something, it does one very important thing: it propels the plot forward or character. But characters' choices and actions set off a chain reaction because it creates a cause and effect dynamic that propels the story forward. And this organic progression keeps the narrative engaging and unpredictable. Now, this has to do with having a position, challenging that position. After the end, once that position's challenged, there's a result, and that's called the consequence. How does that influence the position? Does it completely change, somewhat change, or not change at all? Okay? And that pushes the character and plot forward. And you have to look at agency as a tool for exploring themes, or you could use it as a way to have characters make choices that reflect and delve into deeper themes of your story, providing insight into the human condition, morality, or society issues social issues. I know a big thing in my novels, because gods are very proactive, even though sometimes they might not seem it. There's a lot of religious talk, not like you have to believe this thing, but like conversations on the philosophy of faith. And because some people believe they're not gods, they believe they're just powerful wizards or powerful beings that aren't necessarily gods. They're just creatures or species. And also like weaker gods, quote unquote weaker gods, they usually are in the appearance of some sort of animal or creature, or you know, they could be a tree, whatever the case may be. So people were like, that's not a god, that's a wolf. Right? So that creates the debate. But that's a way of providing agency through the characters, the way that their stance on moralities or divinity or whatever the case may be. When characters exercise agency, readers can empathize with their struggles and triumphs. This connection forms an emotional bond between readers and characters. And what that is ultimately saying is that when a character makes a choice, having agency, or being active, or even being actively passive, okay, the reader relates to the consequences of that action, and then how does the character respond to that consequence? And that's engaging. That creates the emotional bond because they're following them through the story. Ultimately, though, I would say that character agency should, on some level, maintain narrative momentum. Its job is that it ensures that the story doesn't stagnate, keeping readers eager to discover what's next. This creates dynamic flow, which is essential for good storytelling. That doesn't mean you can't slow moments down and let moments breathe, but the lack of agency slows the pace down to a drawl and doesn't move the story forward. You can have breathing moments with agency that move the story forward, but it's a moment of breath. It's a moment of taking a beat with these characters and letting that kind of resonate a little bit. But in essence, character agency is the heart of storytelling. It infuses vitality into your characters, making them feel real and relatable. It adds layers of complexity to your narrative, making it engaging and emotionally charged. So keep that in mind. Okay, next. Ooh, crafting character agency. How do we craft it? So we learned what it is. We learned how it impacts your story. So let's talk about how we could potentially craft the character agency. So character development is important, right? So character agency helps with character development. And that's pretty much where you could begin. You could begin by developing a well-rounded character with distinct personality, motivations, goals, and positions. You could try to understand their backgrounds, past experiences, and what drives them. This foundational knowledge will inform their agency. That's why I talk about positions in my videos a lot, because the stronger you understand their many positions, and their positions could be small. It could be like, they like dietary Pepsi over regular diet Pepsi, or they like regular Pepsi over dietary Pepsi, right? Another position could be visual. They like goatees, they like beards, they don't like facial hair. Those are positions. But they could also be a little bit more complicated. They could be like, I don't like war. I do like war. They could be, I don't believe in the gods. I do believe in the gods. They could be, I'm a Giants fan. No, I'm a Jets fan. They could be, I don't like sports. I love sports. They could be writers who don't read can't ever become a great writer. Or they could be, you don't have to read to be a great writer. There are other elements involved, right? Like everybody has a position. So, not that you have to write all of these things down. It's not like you have to create a long list. It's not like you have to spend hours and hours and hours. You will potentially discover their positions and who they are as you develop your character and your story. This is what the discovery part. Even when you're outlining, as you've seen in a lot of my live outlining videos, You discover who characters are, especially if you're starting from scratch. Because as you start building on things, you start discovering things and you go, ooh. That's why I personally like, and it's just a choice, I like to outline. I start with a short form outline to get the beats out of what I think would be interesting. And then I start doing extended outlines, and that's where I discover who these characters are. And as you do that, you'll learn who they are. So you don't have to spend months, weeks, years just writing down if they like red, they don't, whatever. You don't have to do that. You can if you want, though, but you don't have to. So as you start learning who these characters are, if you feel you won't remember anything, then that's when you start making character sheets. Especially like if in dialogue you make decisions where it was someone's like, "Oh, I just made some beef stew. Would you like some?" And they're like, "Oh, I hate meat." Right? Oh, I didn't realize that character hated meat. So I'm gonna write that down in their character sheet. Like I have a huge character sheet, which one day I'm gonna show everybody how I do my characters and everything, and I keep track of them through the time of the novel. So every chapter I have something, and then I take that and in the next chapter I'll take that and build on it and add any information, who's in that chapter, what was new, etc., etc. So that's something to keep in mind. What are their positions? Who are they? How's their background? Because once you clearly establish what your characters want to achieve, these goals should be specific, measurable, and align with their personalities and desires, whether it's saving a loved one, seeking revenge, or pursuing a dream, goals, So the agency comes from their positions, comes from their motivations, comes from their past. It's cause and effect. Some people create PTSD from situations and other people's don't. So, a car accident could be as something very simple to somebody, be like, my whole front end is messed up. And someone else could completely be off the rails. They could have anxieties with it. They could be freaking out. They're like, how am I going to take care of this? I got work. Blah, blah, blah. And they just go into these rants. Both are very human moments, right? So those are things you have to think about as you're writing your story and as you're developing the characters and you're understanding their choices. Because once a character has a position, it can't just change. It has to be challenged. And then even then, it might not change. It'll only slightly change or not change at all. However, it could completely change as long as you challenge those positions. So if you have a character that is, I don't know, let's say anti-religious. Let's say you have a world like my fantasy world, my stories is highly religious. There's gods, but but it's a character that doesn't believe in the gods. They believe it's just a wolf. If you challenge that stance, that position, and there's proof or they experience something divine, now we're talking. That could probably change their position completely. However, if a priest or a cleric or a shaman or somebody prays over somebody and they end up healing a little bit, that might slightly change their mind. Or it might not at all, because they'll be like, well, you're just a healer. You have that ability that's coming from you. Or they might be like, oh, wow, I just heard you praying and you were able to use the power of the divine. So, that's the beauty of understanding the positions of your characters. And by introducing these positions, remember they could be internal and external conflicts that they challenge the characters. So their positions are being challenged. They have external positions and internal positions. An external position would be like, I am a barbarian and it's the barbarian way. And then the internal conflict could be, I like the color blue, but I don't want anyone to know. Because if they find out, I know they won't trust me. They won't trust me because it's color blue. Maybe I like purple. I don't know. Those are internal conflicts. But these internal conflicts are usually emotional or moral dilemmas, while external conflicts involve obstacles and antagonistic forces. And guess what? These conflicts fuel agency as characters strive to overcome them. Another element of crafting your character's agency is allow your characters to make choices and decisions that directly impact the plot. These choices should be meaningful and reflect their personal positions and goals, and avoid making decisions for the sake of the plot. Let characters drive it. That is a stance. That's a position I have. I believe characters should be making the plot move, not the plot making the characters move. However, again, it's your story. This is just my thoughts on the situation. But, to me, it's not as interesting if someone's like, we have to get the sword. Yes, the sword. We must get the sword. Versus, we have to get the sword. Are you talking about the sword that's in the middle of a volcano? There's like 6 of us. And I'm not going to risk the lives of 6 people to get a sword. There has to be another way. There is no other way. Now there's conflict. Now now it's interesting. Anyway. But you also want to ensure that their choices have consequences. Positive choices should lead to rewards, while poor choices result in setbacks or complications. Consequences, by the way, a consequence could be good or bad. It's just the results of a choice and taking action. Consequences add weight to character agency and emphasize the importance of their decision. And the purpose of this is because it presents characters with moral and ethical dilemmas that force them to make tough choices. These dilemmas showcase their values and principles, making their agency more compelling. As you can see, like the way I'm explaining it is, it starts off very simple. Do I like the Giants or do I like the Jets? And then it gets a little bit more and more complicated. So let's arbitrarily, a character grows up in a very Giant-esque home, meaning they celebrate the Giants, everything's about Giants. But you start realizing you kind of you like the Jets because they have something that you like the underdog, you like the team, right? And that kind of aligns more with your personality and desires. You are the underdog as the character, and therefore you root for the underdog. And now, what's the internal and the external conflict? Well, the internal conflict is I grew up around Giants. That's how my family connects. And, but I really feel like I want to root for the underdog because I think they need it. They deserve it. And then the external conflict would be like, well, I'm going to my family's house for this weekend's football, and it's Giants versus the Jets, and I have my jersey on that's Jets. And then it's choices and decisions, right? Do I go with my Jets jersey or not go with my Jet jersey? You know what? I'm going to go with the Jets jersey. All right. Well, that aligns with the character's position, right? Well, then there's a consequence. Now it starts a fight, and the father's like, why do you have to bring that here? Blah 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 blah. Right. So that's they made a poor decision, or did they not? Did they make a positive decision? They made right by themselves, right? So that's where you now create the dilemma. The dilemma is, but I made the right choice for me. I made a positive choice for me, but it was a negative choice for the situation. So how do I move past this? And then the character has to explore that, which comes down to character dialogue and action. How is the character agency conveyed through both dialogue and action? What is it that they talk about in that situation? But you know that I love the underdog father, and this is just my way of not supporting the Jets against the Giants or me standing against the family. This is me trying to believe in myself. And the father's like, okay, that I might be able to get on board with, but why do you have to wear the jersey? See, now we have dialogue. All right. And then now we have character arcs. The planned characters arcs that are involved in this growth or change create the agency. And in my sample, now the son is like, you know what? You're right. I'm being disrespectful by coming here with the Jets jersey. I can still root for the Jets and still be true to myself, but not at the expense of being disrespectful to my family. Character arc. Okay. Now we have to think about reactive versus proactive. So balance reactive and proactive agency. You got to mix it up. Reactive agency is in response to external events, while proactive agency involves characters driving the plot forward through their choices and initiatives. So even in my sample, the reactive was the father sat down with the son and was talking to him. Was like, I can't believe you wore that thing, blah, blah, blah. And then the proactive is them making the choice, saying, you know what, you're right. I can still believe and be who I am, but I don't have to show disrespect to the family. I get it. Okay. Now there is another way to go about that. The father could be like, you know what, you're my son, and or you're my daughter, and you make a valid point, and you're never the underdog in my eyes. But if that's how you feel, and this is the way you work through that, and then they wear the jersey too. The father gets a Jets jersey to stand with their son or their daughter. So like, there's many different ways you can go with that. However, whatever you do, remember to maintain consistency in that character's agency. Ensure that the character's actions and decisions align with their established traits and motivations, because inconsistencies can disrupt the narrative's authenticity. Now, ultimately, you want to consider how readers will perceive character agency. So, engage readers emotionally by allowing them to connect with the character's struggles and decisions. We've talked about that, right? So, the biggest thing you can do, though, is if you think you're creating agency, is obviously when you're done with your first draft, which is your your throw up draft, where you just get it out. On a second read, look for agency. Is my character making choices? Are they being reactive passively too much? I can be passive, I can be reactive, but I also want my characters to be a little proactive. Am I being consistent? So you just kind of look for those elements, and then you just kind of adjust where you have to. All right. So here's an example. You want to do an example? I could do an example. Share the screen. Share the screen. Share the screen. Boom. Boop. Hey. Look at that. All right. Nice. Okay. So as you can see here, we want to present the dilemma with moral, ethical dilemmas that force them to make tough choices. We kind of did it with the I could write that out just so you kind of see it. So let's do this. Okay. Uh there is a child in their 20s who feels like they are the underdogs in their life, and the way they work to feel like they have meaning, purpose, and a chance is by rooting for the underdogs. Their family are all fans of the Giants football team. However, the person decides to root for the Jets because they are the underdogs. Underdog! Okay? And then the scenarios, you work out the plot points and stuff like that. And, there is a big weekend game with the Giants playing the Jets, and the whole family is coming over to the BBQ. The main character, the protagonist, decides to show up wearing a Jets jersey. Get it? Because the Jets are from Jersey, but they're wearing. Okay. I'm sorry. Please don't leave. The protagonist decides to show up wearing a Jets jersey. This has the consequence of making the whole family mad. Rawr. This creates tension and a fight that slowly escalates over the course of the BBQ end game. The father and the protagonist. I write protagonist because it could be a guy or a girl. It doesn't matter. The father and the protagonist end up having a major fight because the father is upset at the kid disrespecting their family's traditions and stance. Right? So, as we said, ultimately, the protagonist explains to their father why they are rooting for the Jets and how they feel like the underdog. And this is how they work through it. I'm going to go with the more wholesome return. The father ends up understanding their child's position and tells them that in their eyes they are not the underdog and they love them and know they can do anything. However, if this is the way you need to work through it, then I support you. Right? And then you can have a really fun moment. Right? The fun moment could be after the halftime game, the father comes down into the room wearing a Jets jersey because they're from Jersey. I can't help it. However, the father never explains why their child wears the Jets jersey. Okay. They are just showing support for them, which makes it a little more interesting because, like you don't have to put them on the spot or whatever like that. So, as you can see, not that you have to, by the way, write it out like this, but this is sort of a small outline. That's really all it is. It's like, this is going to be the story. So, how do I? By the way, this could be a whole novel, and it could just be about the game, like the length of a game. So it's a novel that takes place over 4 hours, you know, and it could start off with that you have to show their ordinary world. You have to show them feeling like the underdog, and that they love rooting for the underdog, and etc. And then what's the inciting incident? Oh, hey, you coming out this weekend? We're having a big barbecue. The Giants are playing football. We want to see them beat the hell out of the Jets. Um, it's family tradition, and then the kid's like, all right, I'll be out there. And then just as a stance to themselves, the whole family's coming. All right, this is actually part of. So the protagonist is like, yeah, you know what? I will be out there. You know what? I'm in college right now, and I could use that nice break or whatever. I don't know. So they come out, and what's the consequences? Well, they're wearing the thing. So you see, like, you can really play with it, So this, if you have an outline, you could look at your outline and see, well, what is the character's arc, right? See that these three things are very important for character agency. What is their dilemma? What is the character's arc? So we know what the arc is. Obviously, the protagonist and the father connected. The father had a great character arc, and even the protagonist has a character arc because they realize that they are able to be who they want to be, and they feel seen and heard. They feel understood. So. But in the beginning, they felt like they were the underdog, that no one sees and hears them, right? And you could set that up. And then you have the reactive and proactive reality of it. There's the reaction of having the Jets jersey. There's the reaction of the BBQ invite. And then there's the proactiveness of wearing the Jets jersey. There's a proactiveness of the father putting on the jersey, right? And then if we talk about all the other elements, the dialogue would relate to those things. What are the consequences? The consequences in this outline. All right. And again, not that you have to do what I just did, but when you're looking at your story, you look for these beats. You look for, is there consequence? Was there choices and decisions made? What is the dilemma? These are things you could think about. And ultimately, when you're doing a revision or even your first draft. So I hope that kind of helps you just see sort of what agency is. There's a lot of agency in this example. I mean, the one big thing is, hey, we have a BBQ. The agency is that the family said, hey, we have the BBQ that happens all the time. Come out. The agency for the protagonist is, you know what? I am going to come out because I need a break from school or whatever. The other agency is, oh, by the way, the agency here is that they know who they are. They create a position, right? And they're trying to work through it. And they're actively trying to work through it because what do? They make another choice. The agency of wearing the jersey, right? And then so every element has agency. The family is like, I can't believe you wore the jersey, and everyone's angry. That's agency. The protagonist not conforming and taking the jersey off, the Jets jersey, but keeping it is agency. It's passive agency because they're not changing their position, right? They're maintaining, I'm going to wear this jersey. If they took it off, that would be reactive and passive at the same time. So that might not be as interesting. But you can make it interesting. They take it off, and then maybe the story argument is that they have to find the will to put it back on. Or maybe by the end of the book, everyone was wearing it. I don't know. It's up to you. But it's just, you want to make sure these things are there. The internal and external conflict is in this. We talked about it. So I really hope that kind of helped. Which brings us to... Did you know that... I do a final thought. Character agency is the lifeblood of your narrative. And we've talked about how it breathes in the vitality of your story. So you want to try to ultimately understand what character agency is, not just because you're like, hey, I want my characters to make choices, but you want to understand why they're making their choices. It's not about predetermined paths or stripping them of flaws and struggles. Like, agency isn't necessarily like, what is the plot? What do they need to do? Agency is how they react to the plot. It's how they react to life, their choices, how being challenged. Are they challenged? Right? So instead, you have to look at it like that. It's about granting them the autonomy to shape their destinies, making choices, taking charge, and then they need to evolve through the story. So if they're passive in the beginning, which is also fine because they're actively being passive, right? And they have agency because they're sticking by their choices. There are the gods of the trees are the better gods than the gods of the clouds. And then by the end of the story, they make the choice to be like, you know what? You actually make some valid points. The gods of the clouds are more interesting than the gods of the trees. And it's essential to kind of grasp that there is no one size fits all. Remember, always approach these things with what works for your story. But sometimes things are not working. So it's okay to be like, well, let me use the tool and get it to work. And then I could play with it from there. Maybe if I start on the foundation of what needs to be done. And then I could kind of sort of be a little bit, me. I could add a little some, right? Anyway. And as a writer to writer, as you delve into character agency, be prepared to embark on a journey of discovery because your characters will surprise you with their decisions. They always do. They talk to me. Well, not your character. My characters talk to me. And this will lead your narrative in unexpected directions. You want to embrace those surprises. When you're working on a scene or dialogue or watching characters go through stuff, even if it's outlined or you're pantsing, There are going to be moments where like something kind of happens on the page. Explore that. See where it goes, because the characters might be naturally just telling you where they want to go, not in a supernatural way, but like as a writer, you start feeling their truths, their agencies. Because let's be honest, you're playing every character in your book. You have to. You have to look at their perspectives. Can't just be like, I need them to say this, right? They have to be saying it. So you have to ultimately, as an actor would, be in the heads of all these characters. So allow, if it comes out while you're working it, see where it goes, play with it, But more importantly, I think character agency is not a static element within your narrative. It's a dynamic force that evolves alongside your characters. Their choices, dilemmas, the growth arc contribute to the ebb and flow of your story's momentum. You want to allow characters to make mistakes. You want to allow characters to grapple with dilemmas. And you want characters to emerge and transform. Nothing is more boring than watching a character make the right choice every single time. Now, as you hone your skills in crafting character agency, approach each draft as an opportunity to refine and enhance it. Seek feedback. Revise diligently. And always keep the reader's emotional connection in mind. Your characters have the potential to resonate deeply with your audience. In closing, as if this wasn't, remember that character agency is a tool, a powerful one at that empowers you as the storyteller to tell captivating stories. So embrace all of what you have with character agency and this tool with an open heart and willingness to explore the depths of your characters' souls. Your writing journey will be enriched, your narratives more engaging, and your readers forever captivated by the agency your characters will wield. Whatever. So, fellow storyteller, go forth and infuse your characters with agency. Let them dance to the rhythm of their desires and watch as your narratives come alive with the magic of their choices. That's it. Next video. In this series, we'll focus on us discussing the intriguing differences. Oh, yes! I was actually looking forward to this video. I film a bunch of videos in a row, so I just read my scripts that I write. The next video is actually going to be the intriguing differences between plot and story. We're going to learn how these two elements work in harmony to create unforgettable narratives. Because remember, a narrative is made up of two things, story and plot. Plot is how it happens or must happen, and plot is how it unfolds. So again, narrative is two things. It's plot and story. Plot is what must happen no matter what, and story is how it unfolds through the experiences of your characters. So we're going to actually explore that. Question: what character in a book, movie, or series left a lasting impression on you due to their incredible agency? If you like what you've watched and you haven't done so already, but you feel like it, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. All right. As always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.